What's up, chat? How's it going? Welcome back. It's Wednesday. Normally we would have a Warhamster visiting us today, but instead we've been visited by the balanced Dataslate, which is what we're going to be talking about. Yeah, to preface, I hope I don't sound too bad. I'm basically a cocktail of drugs right now because Everwinter has visited me with Nurgle's rot. Unfortunately, we caught the con crud over the weekend, and it hit me really bad as soon as I got home the other day. So I've basically been asleep for the last 36 hours. So see how this live stream goes. You'd probably tell my studio's pretty messy. I'm basically a sort of like a glob of meat right now. Is sort of the status of my entire being. So we'll see if we can get this done. What we're going to be doing today is walking through the balanced Dataslate and the new Minotaur Field Manual. There's new detachments and stuff. I think what we'll do is probably go through all the detachments later this week. Maybe do like a tier list or something that where we can sort of concretely put all the detachments together. Unfortunate that we hit all the detachments as I was out of town. I didn't expect that quite to happen, but it is how it is. And maybe we'll do some coverage about all the detachments later on. Definitely expected them to be a little bit more spread out across the entirety of the season, but I guess not. All right, chat. Let's go ahead and jump in, and I think we'll talk about balanced Dataslate stuff first before we go into Minotaur and Field Manual stuff. And there's some big changes, especially to Eldar. I think a lot of the factions got a little nerfs. We saw some side grades for Demons, which I thought was pretty neat. Most of the factions didn't see too many changes, so that's kind of nice. We don't have too many new abilities to talk about. However, Eldar, holy shit. Look at all this wall of red text we got going on here for our elven friends. The first one, Star Engines does not give you extra movement. Instead, when you advance, you gain assault. So you basically can do the extra movement. It's D6 instead of D6 plus whatever, which means it doesn't combo with Warhost, and also you can't disembark at the end. So the real problem with Eldar previously is that you could Star Engines a vehicle, you could move it like 22 inches, disembark a unit, fire with the unit, and then re-embark it into the transport one of a million different ways. And so it was basically impossible to like counter deploy, because if the Eldar player just wanted to like put it on the line and go first, they could basically access any part of your deployment zone, right? And so if you didn't have appropriate cover, if either player didn't have appropriate cover, it could just be that Eldar put 10 Fire Dragons into your deployment zone on top of one, or they had 10 Dark Reapers that could go up and down the side of the table and get line of sight to anything they wanted. It was wild. So you can no longer do that. You, I guess I have to refresh myself, because I don't believe. I guess they could swift as the wind. A vehicle, and so they could go 16 and disembark instead of like 20. So it used to be it add D6 plus 1 to your move, so you would be moving minimum 16, but more likely 19 to 20. And now you're just you're locked into moving 16, I guess, and then you can disembark. The downside, of course, is that then that prevents you from also using Swift as the Wind elsewhere. So that is a pretty big loss to the transport play for sure. Skyborn Sanctuary now requires you to fight in melee. So obviously this strategy was wild, because there's an identical strategy inside Firestorm Assault Force, right? Which is a detachment that I very much love to play. That says at the end of the fight, or at the end of the fight phase, if you were not embarked in a transport this turn, you could embark in a transport. And they just Skyborn Sanctuary just blew my fucking mind when it printed, because they just didn't put that clause in where you couldn't have disembarked a transport earlier in that turn and then re-embark. So they just printed a strictly better version, which allowed you to jump out of the transport, fire, and then jump back in. And I think it was pretty clear. The writing was on the wall to everyone that this effect was overpowered. This feels like maybe an overcorrection. I don't know. It requires that you fight in the fight phase. So there are still situations where you could use it to shoot and then jump back in. It's much more difficult to use now. Obviously, you basically have to have the transport next to you the whole time, and you have to be eligible to charge. So you basically would have to disembark and move the unit first, then move the transport up next to it, shoot with the unit, then charge and fight something, and end the charge wholly within 6 inches of the transport. I don't know. It's significantly worse. This is one of those stratagems where like sometimes you can use it in cool ways on like Howling Banshees and stuff, but I think 90% of the time it basically doesn't see play. It goes from being one of the best stratagems of the game to being incredibly niche. This does feel like maybe a little bit of an overcorrection. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one because the effect was clearly overpowered, but there were effects elsewhere in the game that were similar, but like interesting in much better ways. And the requirement to fight, I think, it doesn't work quite as well on Eldar because their vehicles are so large, and oftentimes, and their infantry are so fast that they very, unlike things like Drukhari, where you have little vehicles that are everywhere, where these effects that let you get back into vehicles are very important because you have venoms that are just like all over the place.
At Chris102416 donated $2 through Super Chat. WTS my whole Tau army for a grot. Disappointed face emoji.
Chris, thank you for the Super Chats. Whole Tau army for a grot. Tau is an interesting place because I think they're in this position where for some reason I couldn't hear that in my headset, even though I have monitoring on. They're in this position where I think if you nerf the top end of the game, I think Tau are really, really broken. And we were sort of at this stage where we didn't really get to see that, right? Because they were so overshadowed by like Admech and Eldar and stuff. And so I don't know. I would not. A Tau nerf would not shock me, right? Because I think they were so weird. They were weird that they were hyper powerful and had all this cool stuff. I guess the stealth battle suit change was a significant nerf, which we should keep in mind too. So I guess like nerfing them post to that does feel bad. But I do think that they're in that like old Thousand Sons, like, you know, like Index Thousand Sons. If anybody remembers, they went to like nerf every other Index army, and the Thousand Sons were just like this shark that was like slowly approaching because they were so broken, but they were so much less broken than like Eldar and Genestealer cults that they just flew under the radar for an incredibly long amount of time. It's how it feels like a little bit of the same way, but they did already eat a nerf, so I guess eating more nerfs does feel bad. I definitely understand that for sure. All right. So Warhost also got Skyborn Sanctuary changed. They didn't forget that they reprinted the same stratagem twice. Fire and Fade does not allow you to embark into a transport, so Warhost can no longer do the thing where they put 3 units back into transports every turn, because they can use it with Azurman, they can use it with the Fire and Fade unit, and they can use it with the Skyborn Sanctuary unit. So basically, they've entirely dumpstered. Azurman can still do his thing. He has no restrictions, so he can still jump in and out of a Falcon to get wound rerolls. That they basically entirely dumpstered all other ways to re-embark a transport out of phase. So Eldar can no longer do the thing where they shoot you with a gun and then they become invincible, essentially, which I think is probably fine. I do kind of wish they had hit some of the stuff that used that mechanic to them. I mean, it's just Fire Dragons mostly, but use that mechanic to the greatest of its effect. Fire Dragons, I feel like, I don't know, like Fuegid is kind of a problem. I even think the Fire Dragons without Fuegid are not even particularly scary. They're like very expensive anti-tank infantry, which is fine, but like the Fuegid unit is so incredibly crazy that I think that was like the real issue in my opinion. But this is at least like a more interactive style of game. Aspect Shrine tokens. This does nerf the Fuegin unit a little bit, but not like hugely because you still have your Fire Pike to use it on. Aspect Shrine tokens can no longer be used on character models. So previously you could use like Waugan Ra or Acerman who had devastating wounds on their guns, and then you could hop them into a big unit and then use all of the Aspect Shrine tokens to pump devastating wounds out of them. You can't do that anymore, which makes Aspect Shrine token significantly worse. Outside of a very few situations, it also makes like Howling Banshees with the attached Outark worse because you can't use it on his fusion gun. So like, there's a lot of Aspect Warrior units where the Shrine tokens are not very useful. And I guess if you're playing an Aspect Host already, you'll just use them to power strats now for the most part, because like getting an auto 6 on like one melee attack or whatever is not that exciting most of the time. So yeah, just enormous nerfs to Eldar, which I think we saw coming. It does feel, I'm curious to see whether this ends up being kind of ham-handed. I do think that a lot of Eldar players like picked them up because they were a little bit of a flavor. And I think that a lot of the less dedicated Eldar players will hop off the faction now, because it isn't quite as a point-and-click adventure game. But hopefully they do some stuff to fix some of like the lesser played detachments and things. Because I definitely like to see stuff like Spirit Conclave or whatever like get some play in exchange for Warhost or Aspect Host, which are, in fairness, like basically two identical detachments that they decided to print. Go down the line. Drukhari got a nice little quality of life improvement. Hand of the Archon can now combat squad inside of Venom, which is good. That was like kind of inexplicable that they released an elite Kabalite Warrior squad and then made them strictly worse than Kabalite Warriors, because they weren't included in this ability. So you might see Hand of the Archon now. I don't really know. I'm not even sure I know what they do. They can empower to get lethal hits and precision. Oh, on their rifles. Okay. They select one objective marker on the battlefield and become OC3 and get a 5+ invulnerable save on that, and they have a scout. Okay, no, this unit actually seems kind of good. They're 125 points. So they're not base OC2, they're base OC1, but they become extra OC when they're taking objectives. And they have like a bunch of special weapons. Whoa, Ryan.
6,931 donated $20 through Super Chat. Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Be birds the word day, well a bird. Be birds the word day, well a bird. Be birds the word day.
Yeah, honestly, the Thousand Sons detachment seems kind of goated. It's not that great. I don't know. I don't want to go out and say it's crazy. But I did read the changes to Thousand Sons. It is funny that instead of like, I don't know, going out of their way to buff like all the dog shit stuff that they nerfed a billion times, they're just like, I don't know, what if we massively buffed Lords of Change? Like, okay. Is that only hit Thousand Sons? I don't think so. I think Lords of Change might be better in the detachment where they can teleport infinite times, potentially out of melee, shoot through walls, and even get unshootable. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that because that's going to be fun. Emperor's Children got actually what I think is kind of a sweet enhancement here, or not enhancement, like a buff here to Rapid Evisceration. So this is like the transport detachment that people thought was going to be good when it first released. It gives you. They also got a new detachment that makes Fulgrim like kind of okay. I don't know. Emperor's Children have a lot going on. Previously, it gave a buff, the reroll ones to hit and wound against enemies, against 4 units that disembark to transport this turn. But now it also gives it to the transport unit itself. So, and that's permanent, which means you can just take Land Raiders and they just have built-in hit and wound rerolls. Or if you shoot Noise Marines out of a firing deck, they just have built-in hit and wound rerolls. That's sick, actually. This detachment has like uppy downy for transports. It has like reactive disembarks. It has obsec. There's like definitely there's stuff going on here, and the fact that it can actually build kind of a shooting army for Thousand Sons, or for Emperor's Children is actually kind of neat. So I don't know. There might be something here. Like taking big glass cannon boats and noise marine bricks and stuff and getting rerolls is actually kind of sweet. I don't know. A teeny tiny little quality of life change, but I like that. Makes you recontextualize a detachment that literally nobody played previously. So I think that'll be interesting. Moving on down the line. There's a lot of factions that didn't get any changes. I think the next one that we have to look at is Thousand Sons. Yeah, here we go. So so we get a little bit of a look at the demon changes, which are included in their faction pack. But basically, they have totally rebuilt. I didn't notice that they side graded this. It's actually kind of awkward. They've rebuilt the Lord of Change weapon profiles. So Kairos Feetweaver, now he loses a pip of AP on his overcharge gun, but his weapon becomes flat 3 damage. And then the same for the Lord of Change. He just becomes flat 3 damage when he fires. His overcharges his gun from D3 damage. So the damage output of Lords of Change, wildly more consistent. Exponentially more consistent than they were previously. There were so many games where you would shoot the Lord of Change and he would roll 4 1s and a 2 for damage. And you would kill like 2 Space Marine scouts. And you're like, oh, this is stupid. But now just flat killing medium to heavy infantry is enormous. He's very consistent into vehicles and stuff. Huge, absolutely huge. In addition to that, Rod of Sorcery also went up to flat 2 rather than D3, and which is fine. Right, that's a side grade mathematically, whereas 3 from D3 is a strict upgrade. However, it also went to 18-inch range. So you no longer have to play this weird range game where their Lords of Change can sometimes only shoot with one of his guns because it's longer range than the other one. Now both guns are the same range. So he can fire all his weapons all the time. He never has to pick and choose which one he's going to shoot. That's awesome. So he's firing 15 shots and they all have consistent damage. So he went from being really, really bad into like medium infantry profiles to actually, I think, being kind of good. I haven't cracked the math on it, but basically 33% of the time he's going to kill a 2-wound bottle more frequently than he did previously, which is huge. So that's great. In addition to that, they finally, this is wild because this was absolutely flabbergasting when this codex released. Incredible stupid oversight on whoever designed the demon detachment for Thousand Sons. But the demon detachment for Thousand Sons, what's it called? The host of duplicity or whatever. It is called Change Host of Deceit, excuse me. It gives your scintillating legion units Cabal of Sorcerers, but it didn't let them benefit from Cabal of Sorcerers. So you could cast spells on your expensive demon units that would buff only your little Space Marine guys, which you were spending less points on because you were taking the demon units. So there was like basically no reason to play this detachment ever because you would just take units that couldn't benefit from your army ability, right? Like I could spend to buy these Scintillating Legion guys that are like maybe at best a side grade for my regular profiles, but then don't benefit from my army ability. Or I could play any other detachment and I just play my whole army as the army ability. Now, finally, the Kabbalistic rituals specify that they work on Scintillating Legion units. So they're going to get rerolls from the Oath of Moment spell. They're going to get a double move from the movement spell. And they're going to get the bonus AP from Twist of Fate, which is huge for these weapon profiles, these AP2, AP1 weapons that the Lords of Change are packing, which are now actually kind of sweet. So, yeah, I don't know if that necessarily puts that detachment into being really good because Lords of Change are still kind of mid. But it definitely makes it more interesting. It makes it like playable rather than an absolute laughingstock because it was previously just a meme, an incredible meme. So, yeah, that's exciting. So that's exciting stuff. I think that's all we have for actual rules changes. Let's talk about points. Go do points now. There's also I looked at this earlier because I was like, oh, interesting. There's changes to the tournament companion. I don't know if I necessarily understand what the changes are. They said that they've changed that you set aside your mission card decks and then receive them later. I guess was like somebody arguing that like you could receive a secondary mission deck and then also choose fixed missions and then still pull like secondaries or something. I don't know. I don't understand. And then it specifies how you score VP. So as far as I know, a change was registered, but none of the rules actually changed, and I don't really understand what those rewordings were meant to do, but they are there, so that's something at least. So yeah, let's jump into the Munitorum field manual. I'm going to oopsie daisies, chat. I apologize. Just move my viewer over here just so I can. It looks a little bit better. Oh, hello. There we go. That should look nicer. Cool. All right, we'll just go down the line. Sisters getting dumpstered, absolutely dumpstered. We watched them over the weekend when at Everwinter. We had some great games at Everwinter, by the way. Some of them were a little all over the place. There were definitely some spicy games. It was one of the spiciest weekends of 40K that I think I've live streamed. I don't know what necessarily that is about, but there were definitely like a bunch of games got very contentious on this stream, which is interesting. We did have some very close ones though, which were really fun. And a couple of really cool matchups and stuff too. So definitely go check that out if you haven't. If you want to see why Sisters got nerfed, you can watch the finals because they just were incredible. They just Sacrosanct did Sacrosanct stuff and it was doing pretty good. So here we go. We've got Canoness went up by 10, so the utility Canonesses get taxed a little bit. Sacrosancts went up by 10 in the big unit, not in the small unit. Were they cheaper in the big unit? Is that true? Oh my god. What the fuck? Why? That's weird. That doesn't it were really less expensive if you took 10. They're basically worthless at 5. I don't know why you would take 5. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. You could almost put 5 down lower because like who's gonna play 5? And the unit that's meant to be like a melee bulwark where attack volume is really important, having only 5 of them would be really bad. That's weird. Dominion squads get +5, which makes sense. They're in literally every list, so makes sense to me. Hospitallers went up as well because of the combo with Sacrosancts. So each of your Sacrosanct units is going up 20 in the normal composition. Morven Vault went up 15. Fair enough. She's still probably too cheap, but it is what it is. Retributor squad went up by 5. Or it went up by 15, excuse me, so they're 120. I don't think that they like massively buffed them, and I don't really think that they pointed correctly around their buffed profile, because most armies are running 2 to 3 just as the late game piece, because they're really good. As soon as most of your opponent's army has killed a unit, then the Retributor squads get +1 to hit and wound like against everything. They just go crazy, right? They're just this like late game powerhouse, and once you have Miracle Dice to fuel them too, they go insane. And then Sanctifier's up as well, so that tracks. Adeptus Custodes did see some nice points decreases. Custodian Guard continued to go down, which I think is really funny. It used to be, back in my day, in 8th edition, it was like a Custodian Guardsman, I don't think ever went below 50. They were just like, that was the points that they decided that they were going to be at. It's like a Space Marine's always toughness 4, and a Custodian Guardsman's always 50 points. And now they're 35. They're just getting like absolutely dropped precipitously over and over. I wonder if, like, do we get to the point where there's a list that's like, you just take like 24, like 4 units, like 6 units of 4, they just run around. It is, I guess, it's kind of expensive, but like it's so many Custodian Guard, and they're also dangerous with their wound rerolls and stuff, right? We did watch over the weekend though that like once they don't control objective, things get really awkward for them because like most of their utility is tied up in the wound rerolls, and if you don't get the benefit of the wound rerolls, it gets really awkward. Plus, if you take a lot of them, then they don't get Lions of the Emperor bonus, the +1 to hit and wound. So you have to play a different detachment probably because it gets more difficult to proc that. Alaris Custodians got a big points cost as well, 5 points per bottle. It looks like. So some nice quality of life changes. They said in the write up about these that they wanted to make it so that people were less incentivized to take wardens, Oh, we also see Vigilators and Witch Seekers go down too. Basically everyone's playing Witch Seekers at least X1, so that will almost certainly drop points by a little bit regardless. Vigilators less so, but they're not bad. Vigilators are actually kind of okay. But they said that they wanted to disincentivize people from just taking Wardens all the time. But to be fair, I don't know if Wardens are necessarily like the profile that you're that quite as scared of nowadays as you were previously. Like the 2X Warden bricks is good, but I don't know if it's like that crazy good, especially when you compare them to a lot of the more recent, like similar releases, right? You can have like 5 Wardens, you know, with a character and it's like this unit and they do a thing. And then you look at like 10 Wolfguard Terminators that have like more wounds. They have the same, like very similar profiles, -1 to be wounded, high toughness, 4, 4+ invulnerable save, 2+ armor. They have like mass 2 damage melee attacks, but they're just taking 10 for like similar points cost. You're like, oh, okay. And I don't know if Wardens necessarily like cut the mustard as much anymore. So I think you could also see a drop on a lot of the heavy infantry, especially because there's so much anti-heavy infantry hate right now too. Adeptus Mechanicals, especially 3/1 heavy infantry. Oh my god. Belisarius Call up 35. Not super surprising. The Iron Strider Belisari up 10 points per model, which is also not super surprising. The thing that was crazy is I guess not super crazy, but it was more than I was expecting, was the changes to the medium infantry. So Sicarians and Taraxi. Sterilizers didn't get a change at all, which is interesting. Skystalkers went up a point per model. Sicarians, Infiltrators and Ruststalkers went up between 1 and 1.5 points per model, which is kind of interesting. As you take the larger units, they get more expensive. So they're now 15 points more for each 10 Infiltrator and Ruststalker unit that you're taking. Which is quite a bit. I definitely expected 1 point per model. More than that was a lot. And then also a nerf to Belisarius Call is also a lot. I think you could see it coming a mile away. If you looked at the Adeptus Mechanicus lists compared to most of the other stuff in the meta, like the volume of relevant attacks that they were relevant units that they were able to include in their army was like, wow, it was crazy. You just look at their army compared to their opponent's army. You're like, this is wild. It's like they're playing with an extra 200 points of models, basically. And they would basically just like bowl you over with like sheer unadulterated volume of minis. Not that it was unbeatable, but it definitely, if you didn't have the correct weapon profile, right? If you didn't have like mass medium infantry sweeping really quickly and the ability to deal with the Iron Striders before they got to do too much. So you need like both long range shooting and you need like mass 2 damage melee attacks, right? Like pretty reliable 2 damage melee attacks that don't overcharge AP, because AP is not very useful against these guys. So you couldn't have a weapon profile that's like 2 damage, but you're paying for an AP3 or AP4 or whatever, because that's worthless. So you needed like very specifically like heavy bolters. If you had a heavy bolters, which is not a very useful weapon profile in any other situation, then you're in a tough spot. And obviously there are factions that will do that, but it's hard to do that, sight unseen. One of the reasons Adeptus Sororitas did so well in that matchup is that they tended to have all those weapon profiles with the Sacrosancts just rocking like mass strength 5 or strength 4 lethal hit. AP 1/2 damage, which is interesting. So I don't know. I guess most lists are going up massive numbers of points. This does feel so like the standard list that's running 6 units of Sicarians is going to be going up 90 for them alone, right? Plus probably another 10 or so, plus probably another 60. It's going up probably 200 points. That's a ton. It will, I guess, make them more reasonable into a wider variety of armies, though. So I guess it's probably okay. Aeldari. So Aeldari also got, this feels, I don't know. Eldar definitely felt like they ran into some bad matchups. And I do understand that the matchups, like, even speaking as someone who almost exclusively plays armies that are really bad into Eldar, because all I want to do is play big stupid monsters. And Eldar were like a prey, right? It definitely felt like you could tell that Eldar would run into situations where they would either lose model count very quickly or they would lose If you didn't have the profiles that fire dragons were good at killing, they would just like fail. They would just wouldn't do anything, right? If you're like, hey, all of my big bricks are like -1 to wound mounted with an in-bone save, right? I'm playing White Scars or some shit. Or Ravenwing or something. And then like the fire dragon brick dumps out, kills 1 model or 3 models, and then gets pinned into their wave serpent for the rest of time and absolutely dies. And so nerfing all of those mechanics does feel like it was probably enough. I'm gonna level chat. This feels like maybe it's a step too far. It didn't feel to me like Eldar were totally unstoppable because they were very clearly stopped very many times. I just think that especially if you nerf the pieces that could mess with like the toughest matchups, against them, right? Which is mostly the re-embarkation effects. I think Eldar's they're in a perfectly fine spot. But it seems like Games Workshop disagreed, and Games Workshop has just decided to wildly nerf Eldar. And this isn't even a side grade nerf either. I think it would be interesting, like I said before, if they tried to define the faction a little bit and went back and like took another look at like Guardian Battle Host or Spirit Conclave or some of the other detachments that aren't quite as played, and maybe try to incentivize those more. But they didn't do any of that. They just improved the cost of everything. So Eldar just got absolutely fucking destroyed by this balanced data slate. It's pretty brutal, to be perfectly honest. So Janezar, Lycus all went up. Fuegan didn't, apparently. Where's he at? B, C, D, E, F. Fire Dragons. No, Fuegan stayed. We feel, I guess Lycus probably, I don't know. Is Lycus better than Fuegan? Definitely more. I don't. Probably the same. That's pretty wild, though. We think that Janezar is better than Fuegan. That's the message we're sending. Janezar's good, don't get me wrong. I don't know if she's Fuegan good. That's wild. That's crazy. What a take. What a take, chat. Lycus and Janezar were both fine. Yeah, I mean, Lycus is very annoying, right? I could definitely understand wanting to nerf Lycus. Because she's like, sometimes she just wins the game on the spot for you by like doing a dumb thing, right? Because she'll just pin all your tanks, or she'll take your home objective, or like, it's very annoying. But also that she immediately dies because she has no defensive tech, and she's just like she's a flamer, I guess. And there's very little way to use her to like buff your army and then keep her alive, to like use her as a force multiplier multiple times, which I think she would be great in, but not at 135 points for sure. But the fact that we are costing Janezar in the same level as Fuegan is crazy. That's wild. Fuegan almost hits as hard as Janezar does in melee. And it also has a gun, and also respawns. And also gives his unit like a huge buff. I guess Janezar and Fuegan's improvements are probably pretty similar, but no, maybe not. No, I guess Fuegan's probably almost certainly better. But on top of that, Eldrad went up, which I guess is fine. He's like a one-off, so like Eldrad going up isn't the craziest thing ever. Fire Dragons also went up. Storm Guardians also went up. So if you want your OBSEC, your mediocre OBSEC unit in the back line, that's going to cost you more expensive. Swooping Hawks went up, which is the one part where I probably agree. The Swooping Hawks are they're like the world's best utility unit, right? They're like deep strikers that move fucking 18 inches, right? Or 17 inches in Warhost without advancing. If you need to advance, they can move like 23. It was crazy. And then they also do damage while advancing, and then they also shoot you. Wild. Absolutely wild. I understand it on Swooping Hawks. That was the one unit that was like, they nerfed the big unit, and I was like, people are still going to take the small unit for sure. Warp Spiders went up again. I guess so. They'd already felt like they were a little pricey for what you get, but they were almost certainly relevant. It does feel like Warp Spiders were a bit of a mechanical problem. I think that you get to the point where Warp Spiders probably aren't like very viable as a unit in 40k, simply because the flicker jump mechanic as it's written right now is too strong. I almost would have preferred to see Warp Spiders get points decreased and flicker jump just turn into like you can advance 6 inches or something. Because like the fact that this unit is moving 27 and then doing everything is like pretty wild, right? that's like 9th edition sort of power level on a data sheet. And I think that the game as it's balanced right now is not particularly well balanced for that. And so just in continuing to increase the points cost of units, just eventually going to make it too expensive for what it does. Which is like I don't know if there's a points value that's like not either too cheap or too expensive for that particular mechanic, because the mechanic in and of itself is so fucking strong. That I think I would almost prefer to see War Spiders do something different, do something more reasonable, and then also be cheaper. I think that's an issue with what the faction does, what the unit does for sure. Interesting chat. I think this feels like a step too far. Without any other changes, right? Like if we saw other stuff go down, right? If they were like, oh, we're gonna make your vehicles cheaper, or you're gonna make your wraiths cheaper, or like there's a different archetype you can push to now. This does feel okay, but like most of the Eldar lists, like the most common like Aspectos list, right, was running 10 Fire Dragons, so it's up 20. It was running 15 Swooping Hawks. They went up 10. I think we would go up 5, baby. 10's a lot. Jesus. It was running 15 Swooping Hawks, so it's up 35. It was running all the Epic Heroes, so it's up 60. So 65, and it was running triple Warsiders. So it went up 100 to 105 points, and also had every mechanic that made it work nerfed. That's wild. That's so much. Ooh. Yeah, I don't know, man. Hot damn. Hot diggity damn. The theme of the Dataslate was nerf, but not balance. Yeah, it feels bad. I mean, I like being an Eldar player and being like, man, my faction's really powerful, but I have to work to win. It's like, okay, fair enough. But now, it just feels like it sucks. There's probably, it's a little sad because a lot of the other builds that were competitive but not necessarily like top tier also featured like stuff like Storm Guardians. And so having that stuff get nerfs, like hits, like having a lot in Eldred as well, having a lot of the utility get hit, means that most of those armies are also gonna be more expensive too, right? So you're hitting like the non-competitive archetypes as well, which sucks. That just like sucks really hard. There's like a common trope that GW would do when they want a faction to be generically better, but they don't want to necessarily change its internal balance. They'll just take the best stuff in the codex that's already taken in triplicate, and they'll decrease its cost. They do it all the time. They did it to Canoptic rates, like famously a while ago, where they just like dropped their points by 10, and everyone's like, why? And they're like, I don't know, we want Necrons to be better. They're like, oh, okay, fair enough. I guess just giving them an extra unit's pretty good. And this feels a little bit like we just want Eldar to be generically worse. Like we don't want to rebalance Eldar internally. We just want the faction to suck, or suck more than it does, which is like definitely a bad feeling. Oof. That's what they did to Custodes. I don't know about necessarily about that. They would have like, if they wanted Custodes just to be generically better, they would have dropped the cost on like, well, they did it to the Anathemas Icona stuff, which I guess makes sense. But like, they would like drop Blade Champions and Wardens probably too, and maybe even Callidius. But they dropped the points cost on the stuff that like you take in ones maybe. I don't know. This is just all over. No green, all red. Yikes. Yikes. Have Eldar been lower than a B tier faction at any point in this edition? Probably not. They've definitely been very good. I mean, now maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's like definitely there's archetypes you can play with. I think like there's probably like Seer Council's okay. It's not great, but it's like okay. Windrider Host is all right, and that didn't get changed at all. I think that list played Eldrad, but I don't think it played any of this other stuff. So I think Windrider Host is the way to go. Probably now, but Windrider Host has like a million bad matchups and like can really fall apart super quickly. So it's definitely not as consistent as just playing Aspectos and being invincible most of the time. They definitely have never been super bad, but you don't want any faction to be super bad. The hope with it is that most factions end up in the B tier. They did specify that they were not changing Astra Militarum because they felt that Grizzled Veterans was very strong. So we'll see how that pans out over the next 3 months. Maybe we'll get one more change to them as we go up into Q1 2025 or 2026, excuse me. But Astra Militarum, I don't believe changed at all besides the Grizzled Company, the Grizzled Company change. Black Templars. Jesus. Okay, so Castellan went up 10. Emperor's Champion went up 10. Crusade Ancient went down, which is kind of nice. The Crusade Ancient's actually kind of sweet. Execrator went down 10. Gladiator Valiant went down 10, which is interesting. That's okay, I guess. And then Repulsor Executioner went up to 15. Yeah, I think if nobody expected this change, then you're a silly goop. Because the... Oh, right, thank you for the... Super chat again.
Briong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Tyranids when looking at mounted. Why I get no sus lethal.
Yeah. Mounted keyword's so fucking funny. You get it sometimes playing demons if you play the chariots, where your opponent's like, all right, I'm gonna hold, bring it down, and I'm gonna kill that guy. And then they kill it, and they're like, I'll score, bring it down, right? And you're like, no, I'm mounted. And they're like, excuse me? And you get it from like Lord Discordance too. Like these things that look like they should be monsters, but they end up being chariots or they being mounted units. And then they just, no keywords work on them. No anti-monster, no anti-vehicle. Just nothing. Nothing works on them. They're just a guy. He's just a silly little guy. Yeah. And Tyranids being one of them is like so funny. You just hit that weird matchup where they were playing against like Ravenwing and they have 40 bikers and you're like, well, I don't get a detachment ability, I guess. This sucks. It's actually it's a side grade of the mounted keyword, in my opinion, right? Monsters and vehicles, I don't know. They tend to be kind of okay already. But mounted can't go through walls. They usually don't have the resilience of being a vehicle or the damage output. And they're big units, so they're difficult to maneuver. But the one benefit that they do get, so like generally speaking, it's a terrible keyword. However, the one benefit that they do get is like there's no defensive or no offensive technology that buffs against them, which is actually kind of neat. So like playing mass mounted in some metagames, like we were just talking about the Fire Dragons, right? Fire Dragons like shoot into a mounted unit with an invuln, and they're like, this sucks. I do nothing. I do fuck all. Flagon's like, I guess previously, obviously you can't do this anymore. You'd be like, I'll aspect token my sustained gun to try to get multiple sustains, and then like I'll two-shot a guy maybe, and then the rest of the unit will shoot. I have no rerolls whatsoever, so I'll drop like 3 or 4, and then I'm winning on 3s, maybe 4s if you have a wound penalty like involved. And so I like hand you 2 saves, and you might even save 1 because your recovery of it involved. So it's like I might kill like 2 models, maybe 2 more from Fuegan. So I like my 350 point brick that's like 90% of the damage output of my army kills like 100 points of mounted units and then dies. It feels so bad, dude. Which I don't know. It's just very funny. And I think I like that. I think that's fun. All right. So Repulsor Executioner change, in my opinion, very valid. The Black Templars Repulsor Executioner is probably, or was, significantly more efficient than I think it had any right to be. That said, I don't necessarily know if we needed to nerf any of this other stuff. Black Templars were not like necessarily super high performing. It does suck. I mean, it's a little bit weird to be like, hey guys, you have to stop playing the Emperor's Champion every army. Even though we've highly incentivized you to play an Emperor's Champion in every army. Also, the lore of the factions that you're supposed to play an Emperor's Champion. You know, like you know, every battle, right, should be led by an Emperor's Champion. Isn't that the lore of Black Templars? One guy gets chosen by the Emperor and becomes the Emperor's Champion before at the eve of the battle. And so then he shows up with all the cool swords and stuff.
6,804 donated $4.99 through Super Chat. As a Custodes player, the points drops are enough for an extra support unit, and typically you have 2 guard units, plus more Scout Witch Seekers.
Colin, thanks for the Super Chat as well. Points drops are enough for an extra support unit, plus more scout witch seekers. Hell yeah. Yeah, you could probably in a lot of cases switch out your prosecutors for witch seekers now, right? Because the points isn't dramatically different, and witch seekers are just like almost strictly better, except when they're shooting specifically at like big psychers, and you like roll a bunch of devastating bolters where it's kind of cool. But flamers that force battle shock is like sweet. Yeah, and, I mean, it does feel good. It's definitely, it doesn't feel like it's gonna necessarily like super overhaul the faction, right? Unless they wanted to go heavier on or more widespread on the points cuts. But it does feel like a nice quality of life change, especially in a universe where the top end of the meta is getting basically like nuked from orbit, essentially. I do like that they're trying to push towards the other bespoke Black Templars units, but it does feel like the Castellan, I don't know, it feels like they kind of fucked up the codex a little bit, in that they basically just said, like, they pivoted so hard from the Oath of Moment change, where they said, well, everything needs to get rerolls if we don't have Oath of Moment. So they made basically the only good combo in the codex be the Castellan Marshal, like Wombo. And then they just, and then like, so they're like, oh, sorry, that's too good. Like, come on. Like, print literally anything else usable, and then we'll pull something else, I think is the idea. I don't know. This feels like a reasonable change if like, you know, the Champions of Vehemence or whatever the other one, like the host of whatever, the Wrathful Procession, is that the one? The one where you get a bunch of bonuses for playing a bunch of Execrators. Oh no, Vindicators. Yeah, Vindicator Task Force. It feels like they should go back and revisit those detachments if they want to make like these combos good. But the problem is that like they're just nerfing the only good things that you play in the sub faction, so that sucks. I think the Repulsor Executioner changes, that was for sure very reasonable. The other stuff feels a little bit ham-handed though. But I don't know, maybe if you're playing like the detachments that run max Crusade Ancient plus Execrator combos, maybe that's fine, right? If we cut 60 points out of our army for those guys, I don't know.
At Colin Walker 6804 donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Guard kinda is a winner with no changes. Grizzled Company is going to make Scud indirect and vehicles really strong.
We feel that Guard's gonna be good? Okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to really dig deep into Grizzled Company. It seems like, or Grizzled, what is it called? Grizzled, whatever. Grizzled Company, no, that is what it is. It kind of feels to me, I'm sure we'll talk about it when we do a breakdown of all the Goutsmith detachments, but it feels to me like it's kind of a side grade from Combined Arms, right? You trade lethals for rerolls, which is like in a lot of cases a side grade. You lose like those random damage spikes where you 6 out your multi-melta shooting into opposing vehicles, but you do get like better order economy and you get some other benefits. So it's like, all right. I'd be curious to see if it is truly as strong as people are giving credit for, because it does feel like it's a little bit more of the same in a kind of a different skin.
Pennsylvania 4145 donated $5 through Super Chat. These changes in the context of BT's terrible detachments and reliance on GTF are a slap in the face. Their internal balance justification is bullshit.
Ben, thank you for the Super Chat as well. I think, yeah, I agree that I think the internal balance of Black Templars is really the issue. I guess it feels like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like necessarily they want to put the design like resources into fixing a lot of their detachments. I wonder if there's like I've been thinking about doing like streams that are a little bit more focused on specific factions, chat, and I think that could be like an interesting thing, is like taking some of the worst factions or worst detachments and like kind of like talking through what could be changed to fix them. And I think Black Templars is like an interesting place to put that, because it does feel like you could do a lot of stuff like they did with Emperor's Shield, where they basically just took all of the stratagems in an already existent detachment that was really bad, and then basically just like pumped them up by one like you know, like level of power, right? Where you can like unlock targeting or make the effect easier to unlock or like make it apply to more types of attacks and stuff like that. And I feel like there's a lot of that you could do with Black Templars, where a lot of their detachments are like super focused on particular keywords and like really weird like combos that are difficult to get off, and you just make them easier to attain, and then suddenly they're not necessarily focused on GTF as much, and they don't necessarily only have to play Castle and Marshall combos. But yeah, I don't know. It does suck that you're just like, you know, I'm playing the only good things you gave me in the codex, and you're punishing me for it. Like, please God. And then the Execrator, it sucks too, because the Execrator I think is like a really good data sheet. We talked about it when it released, right? And we were like, this is the best chaplain that has been released in 10th edition. Like, this guy is crazy. He has 8 2-damage melee attacks. He gives you advanced charge, full stop, no riders on it. With upside, right?
At Colin Walker 6,804 donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Guard artillery is sustained already, and then give it twice as many orders for 4+ blast hits, with reroll ones to hit horde plus lethal hits.
Thanks again, Colin, for the super chat. We feel that guard artillery is the way to go. I could see it. I could see it potentially. It does still feel like it's a lot of like fishing, but and especially in a universe where Eldar basically gets like removed from the meta essentially, or at least like aspect Eldar, where you're taking like 1 million T3 infantry units. I'd be curious to see whether or not we still feel that like mass indirect fire is necessary. I mean, it's still probably good, but you know, we'll see, I guess. My headset is almost dead. But to go back to the original point, I forget what it was. Oh, but the Execrator felt like it was meant to alleviate the necessity for units to be able to advance in charge, right? Because you really need that in a melee faction. I think it's very apparent that like then the ability to advance in charge or to get like passive threat range increases is basically essentially like base movement characteristic on melee armies in 10th edition 40k is not fast enough, generally speaking, right? And so you need ways to improve your movement characteristic if you want to be able to cross no man's land, especially in more open terrain formats. And so Execrators are necessary in that case. But the problem is that you might as well play Gladius Task Force, and if you play Gladius Task Force, you have advanced in charge either for the whole army or for 1 CP. So you don't need Execrators at all. So you're like, why would I take these guys if I could just take more Castle and Marshall combos and then just play those? So it feels like they kind of like shit the bed in multiple different ways, right? They were like, hey, here's this guy who is meant to buff the detachments in the supplement, except that the detachments in the supplement are worse than the detachments in the core book. So why would I play those? And by extension, why would I play this guy? So like you could keep reducing his points value, and eventually he'll get to the point where he's just good on his own. But like that's not what we want to do. We want to put him into an environment, into an ecosystem where he's actually useful. I think this is a really smart, like it's so frustrating to me because I could totally like I could see the fingerprints of the design intention for the Execrator to be like, guys, we have this guy who makes all these detachments work, but it just sucks that they fucked it up so bad because the detachments are like just terrible. I don't know. It's unfortunate. The Execrator has like weird dual attachment problems, right? I have to replace my headset battery. Sorry, one sec, chat. It's just beeping in my ear. Very distracting. I got this new headset a couple weeks ago, and I actually really like it. And the downside is that the battery life is not crazy long. But it comes with multiple batteries that you can switch around. All right, let's move on. We've talked about Black Templars for a really long time. Chaos Demons, let's go! AdSec has dual attachment issues and can only attach the Black Templar units, not generic Space Marines. Yeah, well, I mean, that's fine. Like, I don't know if I'm that excited about attaching to Assault Intercessors when I could alternatively attach to Sword Brethren or whatever. that feels like whatever. The dual attachment thing is definitely problematic. I do wish, I don't know. I think that I'm in favor of more unlocked leadership stuff than I am like restrictive ones. I do understand that there are some combos that are really strong, but it's like really weird and jarring when you play Space Marines and half your characters can dual attach and half can't. And like you have to remember which ones can. Because like a Crusade Ancient can explicitly dual attach with an Execrator, but no one else can. And you're like, why is it like that? And he can't dual attach to any other chaplains, only the Execrator. You're like, why? That's dumb. Just let the little characters dual attach with the big characters, right? In Space Marines. If you want Space Marines to be defined by their leadership abilities on their combat units, just make it so that you can like more freely combo them out. I don't know. I'm always like more in favor of more like player agency than I am less. Is this a new Arctis? It's not like the most recent version of Arctis. I think it's like a generation removed, but yeah, it's the same line of Arctis headsets. Chaos Demons. We saw some points increase for Kairos has me kind of scratching my head a little bit because they side graded his gun, and then they made him more expensive, which is like a little bit weird. I don't know. That said, he is a command point. Like he's a command point like battery. He fucks with your opponent's command points and he generates command points himself, which is great. Lord of Change went up 10, which makes sense because he's more consistent in shooting now. Rodigus went up 15, which I think is definitely reasonable because Rodigus was like, just like, if you played with him, you were like, why is this guy 250? He's fucking nuts. Like, this is so dumb. Him going up is like, totally makes sense to me. There was also, they changed Endless Gift. Oh, we didn't go through the demon changes inside the index. I believe that the only change in addition besides the change to the Lord of Change weapon profiles is that Endless Gift went from a 4+ fail no pain to a 5+ fail no pain, which I think is also reasonable. This does mean that I think demons are like dramatically worse. Because a lot of their lists are slightly more expensive, right? Like the list that I was playing goes up 25, so I actually can't. Yeah, it goes up 25 or it goes up 10, so I actually can't play it anymore. I don't think. Although I think I had points floating, so maybe I could. But I do think that the changes that they made are very reasonable. I think Ed was a little toxic. 30 for a +1 field of pain does feel still a little expensive, but you'll probably still play it, honestly, because like the Great Unclean one. Base profile is like good enough, and then him having basically the equivalent of 1,000,000 wounds is also fine. It's definitely not quite as like absolutely stupid, like pants on head dumb as it was previously. And I think Rodigus going up is reasonable as well. I'm excited for the new builds that multiple Lords of Change kind of unlocks. I think that there's definitely like scintillating Legion builds that are really interesting to think about. Now that their weapon profiles are actually not like super turbo dumb. Like hyper random. Keepers of Secrets went down massive numbers of points. So I actually went down 40 and the KOS went down 30. I still don't know if they're good. Their weapons are just so bad. Like their strength 8 on their big sword. It's strength 8. Like what the fuck? But at 240 with like -1 to be hit, is that good? I don't know. Like they're only, what are they? Like 13 points per wound or whatever? It's 240 divided by 18. If they still had their field up, yeah, 13 points per wound, 13 a little bit. If they still had their field up pain, that would be insane. But they're like super fast. They hit good into melee because you can get up to 13 melee attacks. And the -1 to hit does make them kind of weird. So, like, I don't know. But for 10 more points, you get a whole ass fucking Great Unclean one. The Great Unclean was just going to do better against almost everything. So, I don't know, chat. It feels like kind of just a miss of a profile. They don't really, like, they're meant to kill Terminators, basically. Explicitly Terminators. But I don't know if having a specific Terminator killer is like that useful when you have all the other demons can do it almost just fine. What changes did Lord of Change get? All of his weapon profiles went to. Oh, I guess we could just look at it because we haven't yet. All of his weapon profiles went to flat damage. So the big laser cannon went to flat 3, and the little rod of sorcery went to flat 2, and the rod of sorcery went up to 18-inch range. So all their weapons have consistent range and consistent damage now. This takes a really long time to load. Holy shit! Thanks. Yeah, so the change to demonic incursion is here. Yeah, so the change to endless gift is right here. The 5+ feel no pain, rather than a 4+, which is fair. It used to give you a 5+ and then 4+ if you were in shadow. I kind of wish it. Well, I guess they gave it permanent shadow, so it was fine. You could maybe put it so it was like a 4+ in someone else's shadow, but I don't know. I get it. So Kairos Fate Weaver, they side graded Kairos' gun because his gun used to overcharge for D3 but AP 3, so it got around cover pretty well because it was high AP. But then it was like random damage, so a lot of times he would just do fucking nothing and he sucked. His strength is still abysmally low, which is also sucky, but I mean it's a little bit better, so whatever. So Kairos is like a kind of a side grade, but you're mostly taking him for all the command point fuckery that he does, so that doesn't really matter quite as much. The Lord of Change, though, you need him to deal damage, and he used to be he was just 3d3 damage on his big gun. And then the Rod of Sorcery was also D3 damage, so it was 15 D3 damage attack, so how much damage he does was totally random. But now, he's just flat 3 and flat 2. So if you shoot Space Marines, they just die every time, instead of 33% of the time living randomly, and then eating another attack that could have killed a guy. So his damage output is like, it just increases by like 30% against most medium infantry in the game, which means that he very consistently kills like a Space Marine scout squad now. Which, if you watch my streams long enough, you know that was like the biggest issue with fucking demons was shooting at 5-man Space Marine squads and not being able to kill them. And like in no way could you ever kill them. They would always be left on one model. And sometimes you'd lose games because the unit would come out, do an action, you shoot them with the Lord of Change, kill 2 guys, and then they would just do the action again. And you're like, cool, man. But now he doesn't have to roll random damage; they'll just die, which is great. You love to see it. The AP is still pretty low, which is a little bit of a problem. So sometimes they can just save out of it, but flat damage is great. So like the Lord of Change profile actually went up. He's looking great now, especially because his points change was not huge, right? He was already the cheapest Greater Demon. Now he's just the second cheapest compared to a Keeper of Secret. Oh, I guess he's the third because he wasn't. Oh, he wasn't even the cheapest. He was one step above a Great Unclean One. Now he's middle of the pack, but his shooting's actually reasonable. So yeah, I don't know. And I definitely think that this super duper unlocks like Tzeentch focused builds where you take things like Scintillating Legion with all the buffs they can give to Tzeentch demons, or you take things like Demonic Incursion, and you focus on Lords of Change. Like the Bird Flu list might be back on the table, to be honest, where you just like toughness debuff people with Great Unclean Ones, and then just like turbo nuke them with Lords of Change, because your output is actually kind of sick. So I don't know. I think like you could run 2 Great Unclean Ones and 3 Lords of Change or something, and like probably have a pretty good time. So feels good, man. Yeah, this is definitely the kind of changes I wish we would see more factions see, because it definitely nerfs the top end of the good stuff in demons, right? Like the Rodigus and the Great Unclean One stuff. But on the flip side, you also like there's like a universe where I play a Keeper of Secrets at 240 for a big huge monster. I'd think about it. I don't know if I'll do it, but I'll think about it. 14-inch move. She moves 14. That's really far. And attacks 13 times. That's really far in many attacks. Like I don't know. It has a gun. Like I'd consider it, which I think is cool. I think that's neat. So good on you, G-Dub. I don't know why. So somebody in Games Workshop just fucking loves demons because they spend a lot of time on demons faction changes. They try so hard to side grade them. I guess probably to some extent because it affects a lot of other factions when they do that. But it definitely feels like they've given demons a lot more thought than they have basically any other faction over the course of the edition, because they've had so many of these little tiny changes that like internally rebalance things. Yeah, with the reroll hits thing and Thousand Sons. I mean, it could be good. I don't know. Maybe there's just like a 3 Lord of Change build in Thousand Sons where they just play Chaos Demons now, where they're like firing an AP4 bolts of sorcery with or bolts of change with Twist of Fate at you. You're like, this sucks. Chaos Knights. The Despoiler went up a little bit, 15 points. Ruinator and Desecrator went down. Probably not enough that we don't see the triple Despoiler build. I think that's still going to be where it goes, but it like loses a utility unit. Like you're down a Nurgling squad now, I think, basically. But it's still, I mean, it's still going to be hyper toxic. I think that the way you would have to like hit the knight shooting like batteries is you have to hit the towering keyword, but they just won't do that at this stage of the edition. So they're just going to be there for a while. Chaos Space Marines. Ooh, buffs for Chaos Space Marines. Let's go. Chaos Lord and Terminator armor went down. Let's go. Fellhammer Siege Host. Got a buff for the little 10-point discount on the Bastion Plate guy. Oh, Fabius Bot went up though. All right. Well, just kidding. It's a side grade. It actually went up 5 points. Fabius Bot went up 15, which is fair. I think he was basically included in every competitive build. Takes that guy with the Chosen Brick. So, I mean, that's reasonable. Very reasonable, and I think you'll still take him at 100 points for sure. Like he's a defense and offense buff for his entire unit, and he's a massive a defense buff because he also gives you blank damage and an extra body. So he's just like, and he hits kind of hard himself. So he's just like he buffs the unit on multiple axes, which is enormous. Forge Fiend going down 10 is really nice, especially for the Pact Bound Zealot combos. If you want to do the 5-up critical combos, we actually saw those do pretty well recently, and I'd be interested to see if they continue to do so. Dark Angels, Azrael went up. Ravenwing Black Knights went down. Side grade. Fair enough, I guess. They're really trying to push the Ravenwing Black Knight list in Dark Angels. Which it does work in Wrath of the Rock. Like you can play it in Wrath and they get the -1 to wound because they're mounted units. I actually think it's not too bad. I even discuss it. I have a Dark Angels video coming out probably later this week, which is unfortunate because I think it might. Oh, it's fine because I leave points in for points increases, and we did have Azrael in the Strike Force build. But I did talk about the combo with Ravenwing Black Knights and how they can be good in Wrath of the Rock, so that's interesting. Yeah, I still think you definitely take Azrael for sure. Death Guard, Land Raider went down. Neat. Rodigus went up. Fair enough. Okay, well that was easy. Get wrecked Taliban Summoner players, which honestly I think is like is actually a competitive build. I think it's underplayed, honestly. But maybe less so now that it's 15 points more expensive. Deathwatch, Dominator Kill Team went up. Probably pretty reasonable. Would have been nice to see one of the other ones go down. Like I don't know if anybody's like super playing the Decimus Kill Team. You could probably points decrease that guy. Or the Corvus Black Star. Drukhari Ravager went down. Oh, that's interesting. We actually just watched the Drukhari game over the weekend where they played multiple Ravagers, and they actually seemed pretty great in Reaper's Wager. Just a bunch of really consistent shooting platforms was really nice that are basically like free, right? You're putting 100 points in to potentially knock out a vehicle, and you're asking your opponent to trade, like to engage in that peace trade. And sometimes they just don't die because they have an inbound save. Reavers went up in the 6-man. Okay. I guess they just made it consistent between the two because you do get more mortal wounds for the Reaver Overflight ability to do mortals when you bombing run people. So it's sort of a similar situation to Swooping Hawks, I guess, where it's like the larger unit does still have utility for doing more damage more easily, even though you're 90% of the time taking Reavers in 3s anyway. Just for like just massive numbers of like little fast heat lances everywhere and utility scoring. So it feels like a little bit of a buff here for the Ravagers going down. I don't know how, like there were a couple lists that were playing 12 Reavers, right? 2 6s, but I don't know how often that was being played. I think it was more commonly 3 of 3. 6-man Reavers are an insane jail piece. I get that, yeah. Because they can go 22 off of It's 22 or 24? 24? 24 off of a empowerment. So I guess that tracks, yeah. That makes sense. Emperor's Chillins. Ooh. Oh, we saw a bunch of changes to keepers and stuff, or whatever. There is a universe where Coterie or Carnival of Excess is played. I don't know if it's the universe that we're standing in right now, though. There's like interesting tech you could do of Carnival of Excess, but 90% of the time, what you're triggering your improved criticals on is Demonettes or Fiends or Seekers, and it's not very often the Keepers of Secrets, because the Keepers like don't like do anything. They just have sustained hits, right? Yeah, they just get sustained hits, which is not that exciting, to be honest. So you might as well be playing the Demon Princes or whatever if you're, and actually get your detachment abilities if you're in that detachment. Winged Demon Prince went up again. Ugh. Stop nerfing this guy. I know he's too strong. Why did we give both the offensive and the defensive buffs to the same unit? And then they were like, wait a minute, how come no one's playing our shitty like, once in a blue moon aura guy, and everyone's playing the unit that's faster, is harder to kill, and deals more damage? Why would anybody be playing that one too much? Listen, J-Dub, if you want to make these units balanced, give this guy the -1 damage thing, and then make this guy cheaper, and then suddenly they're both good. I don't know why the guy that's hard to kill is also the guy that does all the damage. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's a weird profile imbalance for sure, and you can tell because they keep fucking discounting the foot guy. Kind of makes me feel like I wish they would go back and rebalance some of this stuff. The problem too is that the foot Demon Prince, he just doesn't hit that hard, and he's like, you have to work to deliver him, and then also he doesn't hit that hard, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. Chaos Bond went down. That's good utility stuff. Chaos Terminators went down. I don't think you're gonna play them in either, so who cares? It's fine. Demon Prince, Foot Demon Prince went down. Their new detachment has like some cool stuff with Demon Princes, right? Because a lot of it's like keys off demons, but I still don't know if you're gonna play them necessarily. There's a good enhancement for them, right? There's an enhancement that makes them like strength 10 AP4, which is like pretty nice. So maybe you play one because he could move through walls and you could late game him pretty hard. But he's still only 6 attacks at 3 damage, so it's like, I don't know. I guess there's a reroll strat. You can give him rerolls, hit and wound rerolls. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine in the new detachment. Gene Stealer Cults, no changes. Grey Knights. Nice buffs. Purgation Squad went down. We did see Purgation Squad list actually do pretty well last week. Interceptor Squad went down as well. That's just a buff because basically every list is playing some number of Interceptor Squads. Not huge changes though, so most lists are probably not going down more than 10 or 15 points. Imperial Agents still unnerfed, chat. I can't believe it. What's the current? Can we stat check the Imperial Agents meta right now? What are they at? Are they still at like oh no one played them. The Imperial Agents are so strong, chat, that you literally cannot calculate their win rate. It's impossible. It is too good. When will they nerf agents? They'll never do it. I was talking to Alex Ng, who was a judge at Everwinter, and we streamed him a bunch of times. We streamed him at Standoff. He won Standoff and beating AdMech in the finals. He and I were having a discussion. He said that his team was trying to get him to play Imperial Agents at World Championships because no one else had. It was a gamble because he figured no one else would register Imperial Agents, so he could go to World Championships and automatically score a best in faction. And he was like, maybe I'll do that just for the meme. And then, as it turns out, because no one else had registered Imperial Agents, he would have won by default. And because best in faction counts towards your country scoring, US and Spain tied at the end. If US had gotten one more best in faction, they would have won. And so if he had played Imperial Agents, he would have won world championships for the United States. And he was like, God damn it, I played a real list and I should have just like memed it up with like fucking Imperialis fleet or something. Which made me laugh. I laughed very much. Playing chess in the fourth dimension, indeed. Yeah. All right, get out of here, Imperial Agents. Imperial Knights, huge points decreases. Defender down, Errant down, Gallant down, Crusader down, Warden down. Cascadator not down though. The scariest list that I've seen so far has been Spearheaded Arms with a Defender and a Castigator. And that just went down 10. I don't know if that's enough to really do anything, but it did happen. So I don't know. It's pretty widespread, but basically all these knights are one-offs, so you're never going to duplicate the points decreases very much. So it's just like you might get another enhancement in or something. Crazy. Leagues of Votann. So a nerf to Brandfast Oathband. Okay. Ooh, these are nice changes, actually. So Arcanist Evaluator went down 10, so he's even better as a trading piece now. These guys are actually kind of sweet, because it's just an independent, sometimes lone operative guy that shoots pretty hard. So you can run them in like your spare slots in Sagittars, and then they can jump out and go shoot people and perform actions and stuff. They're actually kind of nice to have. Buri Egnerson went down by 15, which I think is kind of fair because he's sort of a piece of shit. I think everyone was very excited about how good Buri would be when he released, and then everyone immediately dropped him from their list after like a month, because he hits exactly not hard enough to kill anything, right? He's like exactly 5 multi-damage melee attacks. So if he ever fails one attack, he doesn't kill another 5-man utility unit. He's only OC1, so people just take objectives away from him if they can't kill him. And then he has like a blood surge movement that doesn't do anything because he's just going to basically be dead most of the time if you shoot at him. His regeneration is nice, but if you're taking a regenerating utility unit, you would hope it would A, not be move 5, and B, be less expensive. And so 100 plus for him was a lot. 95 definitely feels much better, but he could probably cut another 5 to 10 and be probably fine. Call went down by 5. That is actually just straight up a buff for Hearthband, right? Because you usually take 1 call in Hearthband with the Bastion Shield generator. So that's, you just get 5 points off. Sagittor going down is huge. That's good if you want to take the 1 Sagittor for your backline Hearthkin Warrior squad. Ironkin Sailjax with Vulcanite and Melee both went down. Phenomenal. Those guys are like fringe playable. The problem is their speed, but like if they were cheap enough, they would be fine either way, I think, because they're just like so annoying to kill. I don't know if like minus 2 points per model or 1.5 points per model or so makes them immediately good, but it definitely helps a little bit. And then what happened? What is this nerf to Brandfast Oathband? Why is Brandfast Oathband catching strays? So the Trivarg Cyber Implant, which gives you sustained hits 2 if you pay yield points, and are if you disembarked a transport this turn. It went to 40 points, but it also requires... Oh, okay. No, sorry. You get sustained hits 2 if you disembark transport or if you spend yield points. So you get it for free if you are in a transport already. Or you could just pay 2 yield points, which you'll probably do anyway, because I think Brandfast wants to be in... it doesn't matter what. Oh yeah, Brandfast wants to be in hostile acquisition because it gets their reactive move act unlocked. And their secure position. Yeah, they want to burn through yield points as much as they can. I mean, I guess I don't know. Like Brandfast also, because it got nerfed previously and then unnerfed and then nerfed again. I feel like it's just so far overshadowed by Delve Shift, Hearthband, and Needguard. I don't know why we would need to worry about its internal balance that much. Give them their one thing. Let them have their Trivarg Cyber Implants. I don't know. That one's pretty weird. Nobody was playing it anymore. Yeah. It was like, why are we hitting this? I don't understand. You want to hit Hearthband, okay. You want to hit Delve Shift, like, all right, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. You know, if Delvework Navigator went up 10, you'd be like, I guess so. You probably generate 60 to 80 points worth of models with that enhancement. But Brand Fast Oathband? All right. Okay. Righty then. Weird. But these points changes are great. These are pretty good. I even think that there's probably some play in Delve Shift with the Ironkin, because the -1 to wound strat in Delve Shift isn't like keyword locked to anything. It's just infantry. And so you can use it on your like Vulcanite Ironkin Steeljack. So you can play the 3-mans that are a 2+ save T6 with 3 wounds each and can be -1 to wound, just like tanking an objective and overwatching all the time. And it's actually kind of neat. I don't know. There's some play somewhere. Or you could do it with melee, but melee overlaps a lot with the Chthonian Berserks you're taking. So I don't know if you necessarily want to do that. But I definitely think that there's play for those guys in that detachment too. I don't know if it's necessarily as good as playing the basic units, but it's interesting. Yeah, that's a nice buff for Leagues of Votann. And I definitely do think that they needed it, because they were really, really struggling for sure after the changes to their recent stuff. And after the last update. Necrons, no changes. Orcs, no changes. That's shocking. I guess orcs are like right in the mid board. Worst performing factions right now are like CSM Knights, Death Guard, which is interesting. But Death Guard weren't even that far below. CSM and Knights are really hurting. I guess orcs are right in the middle, but orcs definitely feel like they needed some love. Interesting. Orcs feel like they're good in the mid board, in the mid tables, but they don't feel like it. Like most, I think, veteran players are able to counteract orcs pretty well. You just have to know the tempo to play against them, because they're going to have their one big turn of being really strong, and then they're going to fall apart afterwards. I hope that in 11th edition, we see orcs move away from the WOG mechanic as their core mechanic. I think they need something more consistent. Even if it's like a version like we had in 9th edition, where orcs had their WOG like echoed for a while, where it was like you would declare the WOG and then it would have a bonus and then a smaller bonus and a smaller bonus. I think that was kind of cool. But like the fact that it's one battle round of being really good and then you're shitty every other turn sucks really hard for the faction. It's like so difficult to balance around. I hope that they just remove it. Space Marines, let's go. Aggressors down. Interesting. 190 for 6 models is not terrible. There's definitely some aggressor combos that I think would be kind of cool. I was thinking about them with in White Scars. I actually think the White Scars aggressor squad's probably kind of neat with the because they get the like a kind of the OG Fire Discipline combo where they can be like full hit and wound rerolls, lethal sustain on the Bolt Storm squad. Plus AP1 ignore cover, which is good too. There's like definitely play in there. So that unit being cheaper is nice. It could go down to 180. It's definitely like you're still basically required to take a transport for them. Like you need a Land Raider or a Repulsor, because they're just so fucking slow that it's tough to get them engaged otherwise. And they'll almost certainly need a command point to advance and shoot too at the same time. Unless you're disembarking a Land Raider, which is more expensive than the other transport options anyway. 8th and Sean went up 25. Hot damn.
At Bucket Hoff Steel Sybil donated $6 Canadian and 99 cents through Super Chat. Necrons need some points drops on Lich Guard. It would also be nice if we didn't rely on 3 data sheets to kill things. DDAs can't be the only answer.
Thanks for the Super Chat, Bucket. Welcome back. I think that they're probably holding off on Necron changes because of the upcoming campaign book, right? So Necrons and Space Marines both are about to get a bunch of new detachments. So it's kind of like the Astra Militarum thing, where it's like we could do balance changes now, but then we're also releasing new stuff for them. So any balance changes now could just get invalidated or exacerbated by new releases. So I wouldn't necessarily take this as the final form of Necrons for this season, because we're staring down the barrel of 500 worlds, right? And that's going to be like a bunch of new detachments and new characters and stuff. So I think Necrons they probably just didn't even bother doing much changes, because they would have to go revisit them later anyway. Neat. So Eighth and Sean got hit almost entirely for Shadowmark Talon, right? Which sucks. It kind of is annoying that he's now like probably costed out of being played in any other detachment, because Shadowmark Talon's like so silly. Just giving you 5 free command points is like a little bit torqued, but I don't know. 25 feels like a lot. Maybe 15. He goes up to 100. Feels maybe okay. Or if he did something else, right? Like I kind of like if it was, instead of the detached ability, if his ability was a datasheet ability, and let him like either use that strat or like a core strat where he could like rapid ingress himself for free or something, that'd be kind of neat. So that he had play outside of other detachments, but whatever. I don't know. I don't feel very much, more remorse for fucking Shadowmark Talon getting nerfed. Whatever. Eradicators went down. That's shocking. Okay. We put Fire Dragons up to 240, but Eradicators went down 20. Okay. Whatever. They have their Eradicators ability, the anti-tank ability, by the way, chat, is strictly better than Fire Dragons. Did you know that? Did you know? Do you realize that? They just have a strictly better version of an Eldar ability. That's wild. Because theirs works in Overwatch. It works all the time. Which is a little annoying, because I wish they would template that so they didn't both work either in Overwatch or not in Overwatch, because people get it confused all the time. But it's just how it goes. I don't know. Corsaro Khan went down 10. Base Lieutenants went down 10. Damn. White Scar Stonk's up huge. If you're taking the Sustained Lethal combo, that's down 10, and you're also always taking Corsaro Khan because he rules, so you're down 20. Plus, you might be taking some of these other units. Let's go. Kato Sicarius, down 25. Fuck you. Fuck you. Why? Did we nerf Victrix at least? Centurion Devastators up 20. Get fucked. I don't give a shit about this unit. I want this unit to get legended so bad. It's so, every time Centurions are good, it's the most toxic thing in the world. I just either make them flat 3 models and it's like a little compact anti-tank squad, or just fucking legend them. The 6-mans with 1,000,000 buffs on them, I hate it. It's so shitty. It feels so bad to play against. It feels so bad to play, because if you just get diced out and the unit dies, sometimes you just lose the game on the spot, because you're putting like 400 points into this thing. I don't know. I don't give a shit about these guys. Vanguard Veteran Squads went up. That's a little sad. They're now 10 points more than Jump JPI. Oh, excuse me, chat. I got massive sniffles from this cold. JPI Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs. They're 10 points more than JPI. I guess it's because of the 10-man stuff. I almost wish that they would like increase the cost of the 10-mans. But honestly, Vanguard Veterans are good in both varieties. So now there's a much greater, a much better argument to play JPI over them, because you're paying 2 points less per model. But the benefit that Vanguard Veterans had is that they didn't hit quite as hard in most situations, but you could take the pistol, which is huge in a lot of combos. So like this hits the Firestorm Assault Force combo where you give them lethal or devastating wounds, or the Forge Father Seekers combo where you give them devastating wounds, and it also hits the Shadowmark Talon version that plays like 20 of them. But the sad part is that this also hits the Dark Angels builds that was running like 15 just 5-mans because of all of the veteran combos you could get with them. Victrix Honor Guard went down in the 3-man and up in the 6-man. So now they're just straight up 30 or 40 points per model instead of being different depending on how big you build them. Reasonable. 240 is probably lower than I expected. And you do get a little bit of an offset if you're playing the Kato Sicarius version, but it definitely is much more reasonable. And I think 120 is there's an argument to be made to play a 3-man. If you aren't all in on the Victrix Honor Guard being like the thing, then you could play just a 3 with Calgar, and it's still 6 models total. And you get like the two like super epic hero guys. So like if the unit commits late game and hasn't taken casualties yet, it still hits like a truck because you get the +1 strength and AP and the twin linked guy in one unit. Stormspeeder Thunderstrike went down. Really? Okay. What? Why? What the fuck? That's weird. They just like they wildly improved Space Marine's ability to kill tanks. They're like, guys, Eradicators went down, Thunderstrike went down. What the fuck? So we're just shooting people with guns again now. I see how it is. Okay. Victrix could be 260 to 280 and still be playable. That feels like a lot. I don't know. Because you're also you're required to attach characters into them, right? So it's not just the unit. Like you're talking about like an almost 400 point unit at that point, and then I don't know. It gets a little. If you have like an enhancement and you have a character, it gets like a lot. But I definitely was expecting like 250-ish. We'll see how it ends up though, because I do think that the phenomenon was, and I think that there's certainly going to be some number of people who are going to migrate towards this build because it didn't get hit like dramatically hard, but a lot of the other top stuff got nerfed, right? Admech got like fucking vaporized by points increases, and Eldar got destroyed by a nuclear missile from orbit. And a lot of the people who were playing Victrix Honor Guard were like the tier. I'm going to be very rude to some people right now. A lot of the people who had immediately picked up Victrix Honor Guard upon their release were like the tier 2 players, right? Who like to play like stuff that is kind of like first order optimal, where it's like easy to execute and like has good numbers, but isn't necessarily like hyper finessey. And I think those people tend to win on the back of their faction a lot of times, but they do tend to lose to better players. And I think what I saw was a lot of people who weren't necessarily like people who consistently won GTs pick up Victrix Honor Guard and expect to win with it, and then they didn't because they would get hit by AdMech or they would get hit by Eldar, and like somebody would just outscore them, right? And I think now that those factions have been nerfed, I do actually think that Victrix might be better because Space Marines do feel like they are still like at the top. Shadowmark Talon, which was like a tier 2 Space Marine build, got nerfed into oblivion. I don't know if you're playing Shadowmark Talon anymore, but I do think that Ultramarine still looks incredibly strong, and it's probably going to look stronger now that they get new releases too. So I would expect the Ultramarines to do better now, even though their stuff got nerfed. Dark Angels Company of Hunters build, I could see that. Victrix won multiple events. Yeah, to some extent though, Victrix won multiple events, in part because they were incredibly strong, right? Like I don't want anyone to think that I'm not saying that Victrix Honor Guard were ridiculous on release. But they were also like easily the highest represented faction. So some of that can be attributed to simply a volume of results, right? Like if you take any faction and you make it like 10 to 15% of the metagame, of course it's going to have a higher representation in event wins, right? Just naturally. I do think that you could probably attribute, 50% of those wins to the faction being very strong in comparison, especially if you don't hit matchups that aren't teching for it. I think that it was being curtailed to some extent by the other strong factions in the meta, and those factions being nerfed, I think, is going to hurt it quite a bit, or is going to help it quite a bit. Are Ultramarines the best army in the game? We'll have to see. I think that there's a lot of argument to be made for some of the other stuff and the other factions that got buffed and the got new releases. But in my opinion, I think that it's probably very reasonable that they are. It's I wouldn't be shocked to see Ultramarines continue to do incredibly well. How is Emperor's Shield? I would say that as long as other Space Marines are strong, Emperor's Shield is not. Because Emperor's Shield relies so heavily on AP 1 and 2 attacks that Armor of Contempt like just straight up fucks it really bad. Which sucks really hard. Like Emperor's Shield, I think will just lose to the Space Marine list like really easily. To like Ultramarines, for example. I had a game with Emperor's Shield that got posted on my replay channel. I'll post a link actually. that got posted on the replay channel the other day, and you can kind of see that it's like Emperor Shield is good, but it's fucking struggling into other Space Marine lists. Especially Space Marine lists that are stacking defense, which is what a lot of Blade of Ultramar builds are going to do. Here we go, chat. Here's the link. Also, they got hit a little bit with the Vanguard veteran change, because I think you would take Vanguard veterans a lot of times in Emperor's Shield over your other utility stuff, because it has all the veteran payoffs. So they even went up a little bit in points, which is kind of sucky. Although Eradicator squads with Tor Garradon going down is kind of big. You might play the 3-man with Tor more reasonably now, and that unit actually does like offset a lot of the downsides. Opinions on the White Scars detachment? I think it's good, but I think that White Scars unique unit roster is still too small in my opinion. I put some time into like build theory crafting it and building it, and I was just like, also part of the problem was that I was like, man, this White Scars detachment's really neat, and then immediately Victrix Honor Guard came out, and I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? So it's like the detachment on paper it basically is like Gladius Task Force with extra steps essentially. And you get like this cool Suboden Con unit, and Corsaro Con's kind of a boss. But the awkward part is that it does all the Gladius Task Force stuff, but doesn't have access to Ultramarine units. And so you're like, what the fuck am I like? Why are we playing this when we could be playing Ultramarines? Which it's a bad feeling. It doesn't feel good. If Victrix Honor Guard had never been released, I think it would have been much more interesting for sure. Yeah, people didn't get the chance to see what White Scars were about. But in fairness, if the universe becomes Victrix Honor Guard again, and it's like triple Victrix Honor Guard running around, White Scars do have some counterplay. Both the downside is the AP values, because they don't have a bonus AP in melee. They have Lance, which is great, but they don't have AP bonus, so they get blown out by Armor of Contempt in melee. But both Suboden Con and Corsaro, if they're not getting Armor of Contempted, are pretty good into Victrix profiles, because they can force mass like high efficiency 2 damage attacks into them. So like Corsaro is 6 2 damage with Devastating. Suboden is 8 2 damage melee attacks. And that's good into Victrix Honor Guard. The problem is the Armor of Contempt, of course. And then they have more importantly, I think, they have a Hellblaster combo that's like wild. They have a Hellblaster squad, which should just probably kill an entire Victrix Honor Guard unit right off the bat, because it's you can get sustained lethal, full rerolls, and +1 to hit if you use incursors. So you can full reroll your 20 Hellblaster shots, and you can put them out of a drop pod or something, so you can basically always get the full combo. And then you're averaging like 5 or 6 lethal sustains, so you're probably looking at like 23 normal hits plus 5 lethals. And then you're wounding on 2s, right? So you're +1 to wound if you're shooting your target, so you get through their -1 to wound. So you're wounding on 2s without like, and you don't care about their defensive tech. And then it's AP3 ignore cover. So if they don't AOC, they only save on 5s, and you hand them like 22, 23 save, like 21, 22 saves. So they save on 5s at that point. They save, let's say 7, and they lose like 4 victories right off the bat. Without having to worry about any other shooting or anything. So like, that's pretty good. That's definitely, I think, something to keep in mind. If they do AOC that, then they save half of them, so they lose. Excuse me, is that right? 14. Yeah, it takes 2 to kill 1. No, they should lose the entire Victrix Honor Guard squad. If they don't AOC, if they do AOC, they should lose 5 of the 6. Not including, not counting like Calgar's like 4+ invulnerable save unit. So like that unit by itself is like crazy good in the matchup, right? But beyond that, they have not a lot going for them because a lot of it's like AP2 or AP1 melee, which sucks. It's just like super bad in the matchup. Tale as old as time, Armor of Contempt is probably a mistake. I think so many issues in 10th edition would have been solved if we didn't give every Space Marine detachment Armor of Contempt. If we gave it to like only Ironstorm Spearhead, like, oh, okay, that's cool, I get it. But like, man, holy shit, does it fuck over a lot of factions? It's just really bad. Not good design. Corsaro needs to not suck. 60 points for Space Marine Captain is sad. Yeah, but he gives you he's a little bit funny. Like, I don't know. He gives you +1 to wound. And he gives you OC2 Outriders, which I think is very relevant, or OC3 Outriders, excuse me. So I don't know. Him being cheaper, I think, is good. He could probably be like 55 or something. I don't think you make him too much cheaper. But he's like, he swings devastating precision, so sometimes he just accidentally like clips the character out of your unit. And he has like built-in lance for his unit. Like I wish he had like a reroll effect. If he had like rerolls against characters like Lucius does or something, I feel like he would be super sweet. But he's definitely suffers from like the first codex problem where they're like every epic hero gets 1 extra ability and that's it. And you're like, but I can't enhance him. So he's 1 to 2 abilities below what a regular character gets, right? And you're like, okay, well, this is awkward. But him being super cheap, I don't know, is not too bad. It definitely doesn't feel like I'm hamstringing myself dramatically by taking an Assault Intercessor Corsaro Con unit or a Blade Guard veteran or Corsaro Con unit. Lance for free is pretty nice. Space Wolves. Bucket of Steel Cable. Thank you for the super chat.
Bucket of Steel Sybil donated $2 Canadian and 79 cents through super chat. Victrix still up. I need 2 monoliths to kill them.
2 monoliths. But then just think, then they won't have any Blade Guard veterans. What could they or Victrix Honor Guard? What could they possibly do against 2 monoliths with no Victrix Honor Guard? Certainly not Oath and then shoot with their +1 to wound like, Gladiator Lancers or whatever. They're definitely not that. With like Storm of Fire for AP 5 ignore cover. Just automatically convert damage into you. Gross. Yucky. New spatial detachment looks good. Yeah, I actually had a long discussion with somebody on Discord earlier about the new spatial detachment. I'm really interested to see where it goes. I'm a little worried because it does feel like it feels a little bit confused in what it's trying to do because it wants to do Terminator stuff. And I think they're trying to push like shooty Terminator builds. I don't necessarily think that that's the way to go. To be fair, shooting Terminators are not very good. Still not good, even with +1 to wound and free rapid ingress. But I do think that there's definitely some play with just like jail builds with that list, which is going to be kind of neat. I'm a little concerned that it lacks melee damage because it's like if you focus on the Space Wolf units particularly, they're all outside of like Wolfen, right? They're all just like strength 5, no bonuses, right? Strength 5 AP2 for 2. And if you hit a matchup where that profile is not very good, they're just fucking atrocious to swing with. But to be fair, that's not all matchups, and you can play other stuff in there. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting how it builds out, but I'm curious to see. But they also just got massive buffs on all their units. Grey Hunters down, which is fine. I don't know if we're that excited about Grey Hunters, but there they are. Murder Fang down, Iron Priest down, Bjorn the Fell-Handed down, Venerable Dreadnought down. Ooh. Looks like Wolfbots stonks up. Let's go. Bjorn the Fell-Handed is big because he's going to be in most lists anyway. So you're most of the time going to be playing that guy. That's basically just 10 points for free off most of your armies. The other stuff is lesser played. The Venerable Dreadnought's probably not too bad at 130. The new detachment gives him move through walls too, which is nice. Tau Empire. Oofs. Oof, Tau Empire. So Tau Empire, we can kind of, if we assume that, like, we have to keep in mind, right? As we talked about at the beginning of the live stream, the stealth battlesuit team Where are those fuckers at? Nerf is basically included in here too, right? So those guys essentially went up 25 points. Which, if you include that with these changes, that's a lot, right? Most lists went up like 100 from where they were a month ago. And we already started to see that, make some waves because you have a less efficient observing now with the stealth battlesuit change. Storm Surge going down is funny. Has anybody ever played a Storm Surge? So I heard somebody at an event who was playing a Storm Surge, and they were like, I think it's underplayed. It's just too expensive. Maybe. They get hit roll modifiers, but not ballistic skill characteristic modifiers. But I guess that doesn't really matter. Nothing really bumps your ballistic or nerfs your ballistic skill anymore. They get hit rerolls against Titanic units. Eat shit, Chaos Knights. And they move through little terrain features, but they can't move through big terrain features, which kind of sucks. You could give them like assault in Montcott, I guess. Maybe that's the truth. Look through their profile. And then their options are, what's the big gun? It's either a pulse driver or a pulse blast cannon. So the blast cannon is 6 shots, 10-4. Or 2 shots, 24, 6, 12. Okay. Yeah, right. The disperse shot is just a Riptide with less AP, so it's worse. Cool. Okay. Or the other one is the driver cannon, which is D6 plus 3, 12, 3, 3. So an average 6 shots at 12, 3, 3. So like a side grade from just the other cannon. So I feel like you always take this one. Because you're losing an AP but gaining a damage. 10 to 12 is like an okay breakpoint, but it's not crazy. And especially in a meta where we're probably expecting to see more Victrix. Damage 4 is really important. And then you also get an alternative profile. Interesting. Okay. So it's just a Riptide. Okay. I don't know, chat. You just play Riptides, man. At least you don't get, like, it's not straight up 2 Riptides for one of these guys, but it's a lot. You can re-roll the D6 and the only detachment you'll run them in. Which detachment is that, chat? I'm not ready for, is it experimental? No. I'm not prepared for it is experimental. Get reroll attack volume. I mean, does it have other random damage weapon profiles? Because otherwise, I guess it's AFPs. Oh, and cluster rockets. Okay. Okay. I guess you could play that. And then it gets a bonus AP, right? Oh no, it gets extra range. Yeah, I don't know, man. That feels like a lot of work for sort of mid damage. Because like you could if you're playing Monkai, you get lethal hits on all these little guns, which does feel pretty relevant. I don't know. At least it's not straight up 2-1 Storm Surge to Riptide, but it's still pretty close. And I feel like 2 Riptides is probably better than 1 Storm Surge, right? Than 1 and 1, like 1.12 Storm Surges. You pop the strat. So it costs you 2 CP to run this thing. I think maybe I could totally be wrong. Maybe Storm Surges are the way to go. But that does feel like we're throwing a lot of good money after bad. At least it's a little tanky, but it's not even as tanky as Knights, right? It's like significantly lower ones. I guess its armor save is better, and it's slower. Ugh. Just trying to be hopeful. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting because I was so prepared for Tau to just sweep everyone after they didn't get any changes in the last data slate. Because they were like on the cusp and then everything else got hit and then they just like, we're just sitting there as already being fairly playable. But I think that it's just like too many successive nerfs, I think. Especially it's already in a format where they have a tough time interacting in a lot of cases because you can't, you don't make use of the fight phase, so you're just hoping that your opponents will die when your like Kalyan abilities proc off or before your Monka stuff turns off. But I think that just like the faction being so contingent on like these data sheets, and they got hit 2 times in a row, right? Because Riptides went up from 180 and two data slates ago. So they're up 60 points on those guys. The Skyray gunships went up, which I think is fair. Skyrays are probably too consistent. But then the stealth battlesuit change means that Tau were on the cusp of doing really well if other factions got nerfed. And then also they just got hit for like 100 points between all these changes, right? 100 plus, which is like, okay. So they went back to being mediocre and then also got nerfed at the same time, which feels really bad. So the Great Kroot list, yeah, but that list does go up here, right? Because it ran 3 Skyrays. That was Drew Southbourne's list. I streamed that against Stephen Pamprine. That was a close game. That was another spicy one, chat. It was a contentious weekend at Everwinter. Holy shit. That was a lot. Strike team's going down by 5, whatever. Breacher team's going down is potentially relevant. But yeah, not a lot going on there. I definitely would have liked to see the stealth battle team go down potentially, because I think the 110 for the big unit is like too much probably. 1,000 Suns. Let's go. Big buffs for the guns. Warp Forge Cabal stonks way up. Chaos Destructor up 100 up, or excuse me, down 10 to 130. Forge Feed down 10 to 130. Those are great, actually. Like, these are unironically playable data sheets, and getting points decreases on them is huge. Mauler Fade down 10. Murelith Vortex Beast went down. Dude, make up your fucking mind, G-Dub. Are you gonna nerf this thing or gonna buff this thing? Where are we at? Rubric Marines went down on the 5-bans. Sorcerers went down. Nice changes. This is good. A lot of lists, like the Grand Coven lists, are probably going down, what? Like 15, 25? Zangor Enlightened went down 10. They're probably taking 2 to 3 of those. You probably went down 60 to 80 points, it feels like, in a lot of these armies. Obviously, the Scintillating Legion stuff went up a little bit. Their Lords of Change were cheaper than the Demon Lords of Change. Interesting. But that's because their weapon profiles got better, so fair enough. We'll see how Scintillating Legion ends up doing. I think that's interesting. But also, there's like definitely a Warforged Cabal. There's a universe where Warforged Cabal ends up being playable here. Because like getting, I don't know, we're probably already running some number of these units, and then also getting 10 points off their actual vehicles is kind of nice. 2,000 Suns Terminator list went down 5 points. I don't know if I don't know. Is the Terminator list the truth, chat? Because like, I don't know if I'm convinced. It feels so matchup dependent, and it feels like if everyone's teching for Victrix, it's just getting caught in the crossfire, and you're gonna be like, why is everyone bringing mass anti-heavy infantry guns? Like, I guess to some extent, well, people are checking for damage 4, right? And that does even hit the rubric or the Scarab Occult units a little bit, because a lot of some of their resilience is taking 2 hits on the sorcerer rather than 1. So like they basically fade 1 extra attack. But if everyone's rocking like 4 damage or 2 damage, then it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I don't know, chats. Tyranids. Ooh, buffs to Carnifexes. Regular Carnifexes went down 25 points per model. The old One-Eye Brick went down 50 points. Is that good? Wait, how much is old One Eye right now? He's like 120, 130. Where's that fucker? 150. Oh, okay. It's still 330 points. That's a lot still. But that's much more reasonable than it was because it was almost 400 previously. Scribber Killers went down 10. So we can spam them for the Battle Shock more often, maybe. They probably are still too expensive. That unit sucks. It's so bad. But oh, that's definitely a number. That's one of the numbers of all time, chat. Minus 50 points for that unit. Play them in subterranean assaults. Give them inflating emergence. Feels like it could be something. Yeah, 330 for the brick. I don't know. That's something. That's something. We did watch it roll like a god on stream over the weekend, and it killed Abaddon's entire unit was shooting with Abaddon because Abaddon made one save throughout the entire shooting activation, and then it also killed like 2 vehicles. I don't think that's going to happen that often, though. Oh, look at this cat. Look at this kitty cat. She's been my best friend. I basically conked out for like 36 hours, and she didn't leave at all. She stayed there the entire time, taking care of me. She's been the best little baby. Yeah, that game was wild. That was a crazy game. The dice were wild. World Eaters. Angron down 20. Yeah, okay. Slaughterbound up. Yeah. Berserker Warband gets nerfed. I guess. Guys, World Eaters are the only they had a positive Victrix Honor Guard matchup. We have to nerf them. They can't be allowed to live. That feels like a lot. That's just like also Juggy Lord got nerfed. This is just straight up a downgrade. What the fuck? Were World Eaters doing that well? No. What? What? Why are we like this? Where does this come from? What is this? So like Berserker Warband list went up like 50, 60 points. What the fuck? They just lose a spawn unit for, out of the other versions. Guys, why is everyone playing Berserker Warband? Because it's the only detachment that does consistent damage. Oh, because everyone's playing Berserker Warband, we should nerf it. No, the problem isn't that Berserker Warband's too strong. It's that you keep fucking nerfing all the other detachments. Why did we drop like 6 nerfs on Khorne Demonkin and then be like, oh, it's so weird that everyone's only playing Berserker Warband? Go fuck yourself. What? This makes no sense. This makes no sense to me, chat. Especially because we saw other like straight 50% factions get no changes whatsoever. And World Eaters just get hit like a truck? Where does this come from? What is going on here? 100% of World Eaters players play Warband because it's the only detachment that's good. It's basically the Black Templar problem, right? Where it's like, guys, we made a faction where basically the only reasonable play is to play this one thing, but we didn't make anything else good, so we have to nerf that one thing because everyone's playing it. That feels like I don't know, just absolutely clueless, just lack of understanding of the meta. Revert the stupid Demonkin changes if you want people to play other stuff. Make Demonkin great again. That's what I have to say. What's the difference with Eldar Skyborn Sanctuary? You have to have fought in the fight phase in order to be able to use it. So you can't jump out of the transport, shoot your guns, then jump back in because you have to have charged something basically. Yeah. This definitely feels like, between this and the Black Templars thing, although at least they did try to side grade with the Black Templars thing. And didn't World Eaters just get did World Eaters get changes to Angron or no? Oh, there was rumor that they would get changes to Angron, but I don't think they did, right? That was in all the rumors where they're gonna get advance in charge and all this bullshit, but they didn't get anything. Yeah, maybe it's still coming. I don't know all of the stuff. Is there's no detachment coming from them, right? Maybe there's if there's a detachment that makes Angron super dumb, and it's like they try to do a Fulgrim thing where they just make Angron really strong in one detachment. Maybe that could explain it, but it doesn't. To my knowledge, I didn't think there were any more detachments inbound. Warband got nuked so hard your demon kid list went up by 30. What the fuck? Yeah, because of the Slaughterbound, right? What is this? That's wild. That's a wild change. That makes no sense to me. That makes absolutely no sense to me. I hate this. I don't like this at all. They were also solidly middle of the road on win rate. It was not even an overperforming faction. 51% according to StatCheck. What the fuck? But they could fight Victrix. Unacceptable. Jesus. Oh yeah, the Juggerlord for the Blood Crusher buff. Yeah, of course. Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah, this is a miss. Don't change these guys. What the hell? Especially because it's another thing where everyone's like, oh, if we have to fight heavy infantry, we're gonna run a bunch of heavy infantry sweepers, and so all the lists running a bunch of 8-bound just get picked up instantaneously, right? If every gun is 4 damage, an 8-bound unit's not gonna survive very long. That makes no sense. I don't get it, chat. And if they were worried about mass, well, yeah, this is a hit specifically to the 8-bound list because we hit the Slaughterbound, which is something that I don't think is going to survive very long in the open once the meta switches. World Eater's Tailback Templar all caught the same bullet? Yeah, for sure. Oof, chat. Feels bad, man. Yeah, what a weird change. What a weird set of changes. There were some that I think were done very well. I think the Chaos Demons one is really cool. You hit the strongest stuff, the Nurgle stuff. You buffed all the other detachments, sub factions that weren't being played. That's neat. I mean, people are gonna actually unironically look at multiple Lords of Change and unironically look at Keepers of Secrets now. What a well executed update for those guys. You have 1,000 Sons, which I think is looking a lot. I don't know if significantly better, but Leagues of Votann look nicer, right? A lot of the underplayed units were buffed. 1,000 Sons got a lot of their more played units buffed, so the faction's just going to do better now. I do think Space Marines is probably a little bit of a miss. It feels like they hit a tier 2 list in a big way. And then they're like, oh guys, we nerfed Victrix to the point where they're pointed where they should be, right? They're not wildly undercosted. But then also we made Sicarius much cheaper. So that even offsets the triple Victrix build. Or it offsets some of the triple Victrix build. If you're playing the new Sicarius and not old Sicarius, obviously. Which was 50-50, I think, between the two. People are playing the scout version versus the guy who hits harder. And then we randomly buffed this Thunderstrike and the Eradicator squad, 2 units that were already played. And lieutenants, what the fuck? So random Space Marine builds just get cheaper for no reason. I mean, I guess those are units that aren't gonna see typical play inside the list where you're running Victrix Honor Guard, but that still means that Space Marines are looking pretty good. But then we have Tau and these other factions that just get hit out of nowhere. I don't know. Decidedly mid on this balance update, chat. I do think that it was appropriate that AdMech and Sisters got changed. The Eldar change was necessary, but I feel went too hard, especially because they were being countered, right? We saw armies that were playing specifically anti-Eldar builds that were running a lot of indirect fire. And sometimes you would hit matchups where they would just their keywords were bad against your keywords and they would die, right? Like you hit mass, like we're talking about, like mounted or something. That fire dragons can't necessarily blow up, and then suddenly the faction's like really you're struggling to win that matchup. Not it's impossible, but it's much more difficult. And I think Eldar getting hit 25 different ways is like just nukes the faction outside of a couple of like non-standard builds. That feels like way over, like super duper heavy-handed. Especially because 90% of the problem was aspect or warhost, right? And so the changes to their stratagems feel like it was all that was really needed. Like, oh man, if we remove the most incredibly toxic interaction in the faction, that was mostly all the faction had going for it. But also, we're gonna like hit literally like half their roster of units too. Bizarre. That's flabbergasting to me. Yeah. Zach Hilt's list got extra points for free. People playing the old scars. No, it was like 50-50. You play a Hero of Interest, and then usually the third unit is one of the Katos. And yeah, it was about a coin flip whether you play the old one or the new one. I think a lot of people are playing the old one for the scout, but there were definitely some lists that were playing the new one. Storm Guardians and Eldar are necessary. Yeah, that hits every build, right? Like even builds that you're not focusing on Aspect Warriors, you oftentimes will be taking Eldar and Storm Guardians, and then now they just get nerfed. Cool, man. We streaming about the Graspus detachments tomorrow? I think so. I think what we'll try to do is might do a tier list of them, or we'll just do a review. I can't decide yet, but I think that's going to happen tomorrow for sure. Anyway, chat. Magnus, Kairos, 2 Lords of Change is going to be funny. That does sound sweet, actually. The downside is range on those guys, but it is what it is. I'm interested in Scintillating Legion builds because I actually think Scintillating Legion's like probably the sleeper here. That was a detachment that was already seeing a little bit of play. It does have like now it has like heavy infantry sweeping out its ass, right? Because it's just firing like strength 12 fucking 3 damage gunshots at you, like strength 12 ignore cover flat 3. From multiple sources, and it's like, or you could ping with a what's the word, chariot, and then your sustain plus ignore cover, you go kind of ham, and it goes to AP3, right, with the strat. So that list actually hits really hard now, much harder than it did, like significantly harder than it did previously. And also like was basically sitting on like a bunch of like stacked buffs. I think a Scintillating Legion is actually going to be kind of nuts now that it actually deals damage. Like the big problem was that you were like, well, I could take this thing, but it's playing really inconsistent Tzeentch effect, like offensive profiles. But now you just get like, you get 2 Lords of Change. They hit pretty hard. You get like the melee Demon Prince, who's like bonus attacks and damage or whatever, with Neverblade. And then you just like dome people and redeploy little flamer units all over the place all the time. For utility. Yeah, it feels like it's going to be super strong. To be clear, chat, I'm not talking about Scintillating Legion, the keyword in Thousand Sons. I'm talking about the actual Scintillating Legion detachment, not the detachment that lets you play Scintillating Legion. The actual Scintillating Legion. I'm calling it now. This detachment's gonna be good. I think that the biggest issue was its output, and that problem has been basically single-handedly solved. And it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be strong. It did go up in points, to be fair, but I don't think it went up like a lot in points, right? Like 45 maybe. Let's build a list. Should we build a list? I'm excited. I'm actually kind of like hype on Scintillating Legion now. Maybe I will play them. I'm wondering if I go to, so I have I'm going to be at Captain Con, who has been a nice sponsor of the channel for a while. We have to do some more sponsored streams for them next week. But They didn't ask me to live stream. I'm gonna be there anyway, and I don't know what I'm gonna be doing there. So I could actually play 40k. I might also play Breach Storm or something else. I'm not sure yet. If I go and I don't play 40k, then and I don't do Breach Storm and I don't live stream, then I could play 40k. And I'm wondering what I would play. And I was gonna see if I wanted to do like a silly Harry Dan list, but the more I think about Harry Dan, the less I want to play him. He just feels like sort of an insane meme that's like really bad. But if playing a bunch of Lords of Change could be actually good. Is this change already updated? They went from 260 to 270, right? Damn. Did New Recruit already update? Fuck. Yeah, dude. Let's go. What a time to be alive. We'd love to see it. So it's like 2 Lords of Change. One has Puppeteer. The other one could have like the shield, maybe? No, the shield's whatever. I'll put Eye on one and then we'll switch it if we want to. The winged guy has +3 attacks. So you can play him as like a rapid ingressor. You have to play him as Tzeentch because then he gets the bonuses. And then you take Neverblade on him. So he goes to 7 attacks, 10, 3, 3, and once per game goes to 9 attacks, sustained 1 at 10, 3, 3. Like that's, or excuse me, 10 attacks. That's a profile with rerolls because you have flex tokens probably in the bank. That sure is one of the profiles of all time. And then like maybe we go crazy, we play Kairos here. I don't even know. I could probably cut Kairos. I don't know if I'm that into him. But then we run like one blue horror or one pink horror unit with a Flux Master probably for the -1. And then we run like a bunch of little flamer squads because they're cheap and they're infantry. Then we run some seekers, or not seekers, excuse me, screamers. And we have 80 left for like, I guess we could go like 1 3-man and we play like a Plague Bearer unit. And then maybe we cut one of these things down to a chariot. Oops. That's a list, chat. That's so much. So you have a backline unit. These guys can redeploy into your opponent's deployment zone and do stupid shit. Or redeploy out of melee, right? Because they're tanky as fuck. And then you just have a million flamers and stuff. Oh, what's the enhancement that gives you the extra token? That's what the second guy should probably have. It's the... Oh, no, it is this one. Yeah. So he generates additional flux tokens. This looks sweet. I don't know. Is this good? This feels good. Maybe is Kairos like a step too far? He has shootout through walls. So you get 2 gunshots to shoot through walls, which is kind of sweet. That you could get ignore cover on because you have the chariot. Only 2 Lords of Change. This isn't Thousand Sons, chat. There are Plague Bearers in this list. Stop getting it confused. This is Chad Demons, not terrible, stupid Thousand Sons with their dumb, bad army ability that sucks. One of the funniest games of 40k all time. Custodes is rerollable invulns. Yeah, it does feel like you have to like couch when your opponent uses when you give your opponent flex tokens, because it's like your opponent being able to reroll saving throws is like kind of bad for you. Because your attacks are, I guess theoretically, your attacks are much more reasonable now. But like giving yourself a wound reroll on a D3 damage gun is like, this sucks. But now that you don't have to worry about damage rolls because you have no random damage in the army at all, you could just potentially just do it on hit rolls a bunch of times. But the problem is you give your opponent wound saving throw rerolls. So I don't know. It's like I've said it a billion times, but this is kind of a bad army of detachability. It basically just trades value with your opponent. I'm gonna do more damage, but you're gonna save more damage, and vice versa. Which is like sucks. It's not that interesting. All right, chat. Ooh. Platform's a hell of an improvement over the old days. Yeah, waiting for Battleforge to update for a million years. I think I'm gonna go ahead and hop off here. I'm feeling my drugs wear off, so I'm starting to fade. But yeah, I should be live tomorrow, assuming I don't crash. I should be live tomorrow. Stay tuned for some. I might record some content later this evening too, which would be kind of big for me. Just fucked. I had a date, chat, and I got home and I was like, I woke up to go leave, and I was like, I'm gonna die. There's no way. I thought yesterday, I was like, I'll sleep this off. It'll be fine. It'll be totally fine. Nope, it was not fine. I woke up like an hour and a half beforehand, and I was like, girl, I can't do it. I'm gonna die. And I think she was upset. And so that's probably not going anywhere anymore, which sucks. It sucks. Getting a cold sucks. But anyway, I should be live tomorrow. And yeah, otherwise, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for hanging up. Thanks for the big super chats. I appreciate that. Support is huge. I should have a getting started video for Dark Angels coming out later this week. And theoretically, I should have a redux on my Salamanders one, I think sometime next week. I have a bunch of content recorded, and I just have never edited it. So we should get some spicy stuff between now and Christmas coming out of the channel. I do apologize that things have been slow, but the holidays plus traveling for events coverage and all that stuff has been big. David Anderson.
David Anderson, 5,859 donated $10 through Super Chat. Come to Winter Ruin 3 in Slatington, Pennsylvania, Trevi. Feel better, Trevi.
Thanks for the Super Chat. Appreciate you, bud. Come to Winter Ruin 3. Where's that? Is that this weekend? I'm going to look it up on Google. Google auto-corrected it to Winter Rune. That's not what I want. When is that? When is that? I want to look it up. Oh, chat. They're back. The shard bugs. We can't escape the shard bugs, chat. Their league begins. Season 2, week 11 of the online campaign league. You can play on Tabletop Simulator. Should we unironically join the shard bugs online league? We could have won $10,000 by going to like a 30-person tournament. Must be nice. How much? Like that's a sponsored slot, right? Sorry. Oh, excuse me, chat. Oh, that's a sponsored slot at the front page of Best Coast Pairings. So I wonder how much money have they put into shard bugs to get people to play that game? Because it must be a lot. Oops. I can't find this event that we're talking about right now, chat. First weekend of February? No, I'm doing Captain Con. I can't leave Captain Con. It's too near and dear to my heart, chat. I'm sorry. I love it too much. Plus, it's being run by Away Games. It's going to be sweet. And I'm there every year, and I would break my streak. That would make me sad. I don't know. I might even just go to stream for like gratis. I don't know, because I'm going to be there anyway. I might just stream anyway. I haven't decided. We have to decide. Yeah, I'm sorry. Kairos was overcosted before. He didn't need to go up. Yeah, it was. I didn't like that they. I don't disagree, and I don't like that they side graded his gun. I think his gun just needed an upgrade because he was like fucking terrible at shooting. It was so bad. Strength 9 AP 3, like strength 9 D3 damage. Is like, what the fuck? This guy costs 300. But I do think that the list who were playing him, we're not playing him for his gun, right? They're playing him for his command point attacks, and I think that that's very relevant. And I think, like, as this dude that you just, like, run up and you get some CP from him and you fuck with your opponent's CP for a while, that's probably reasonable. Like, being able to, like, text their AOCs or their reactive moves and stuff is going to be big. So, anyway. All right, chat. I'm going to hop off. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I appreciate you all. Thanks for the super chats as well. And I will see you probably tomorrow. Cheers, everyone. Keep it classy, folks. Goodbye. Why is it so small?